the letter that stopped her heart. What if the doctor's note meant to save you is a lie that breaks you? Eleanor Thompson, 75, stood frozen in her Denver kitchen, a crumpled letter slipping from her trembling hands. It read, "Urgent, abnormal scan. Possible cancer. Call immediately." Just yesterday, she was kneading dough for her famous apple pies, humming Sinatra, and planning to waltz at her grandson's wedding. Now, her world was crumbling all because of a routine test she never needed. How did a vibrant woman end up here, betrayed by the system she trusted? Hey there, I'm Dr. Thomas, a geriatrician with 30 years of walking folks through the wild ride of aging, and I'm talking straight to you for our YouTube channel, Living Fully After 50. Hit us up at youtube.com/@livingfullyafter50official. Eleanor's story isn't just a wake-up call, it's a lifeline for anyone over 50 who's ever felt trapped by the just-in-case medical machine. Her journey's got twists that'll shock you, moments that'll tug your heart, and lessons that could save your life. So, grab a mug of something warm, settle in, and let's unravel a truth that hits hard. After 70, the tests you're told are your safety net can be the ones that pull you under. Stick with me, this one's personal. The heart of Eleanor, a life worth living. Eleanor was Denver's sweetheart. At 75, she had a smile that could melt snow, gray curls that bounced when she laughed, and a kitchen that smelled like cinnamon and love. Her apple pies were legendary at the local farmer's market, and her garden bursting with roses and sunflowers was her sanctuary. Her grandson, Liam, was her pride, and she'd promised to waltz with him at his wedding next spring, her blue dress already picked out. "I'm gonna spin you like we're in a movie, kiddo," she'd told him, her eyes twinkling. But when Eleanor shuffled into my clinic, that twinkle was gone. She lugged a faded canvas tote, stuffed with medical records, her shoulders hunched like she was carrying the world. "Dr. Thomas," she said, her voice shaky, "I've done every test they told me to, scans, blood work, you name it. But I'm exhausted, broke, and scared I'm missing something. Am I running out of time?" Her words cut deep. Eleanor wasn't sick, not the way you'd think. She could trek to the market with her pie cart, tend her roses without a hitch, and charm Liam with stories of her 1960s road trips with her late husband, Frank. But for years, she'd been sucked into what I call the medical meat grinder. It started at 65 with a slightly high blood pressure reading, which led to pills that made her dizzy, which led to more tests. A mammogram flagged a spot, sparking a biopsy that left her bruised but cancer-free. A colonoscopy just to check sent her to the ER with dehydration. By the time she sat across from me, she was on 10 medications, drowning in $4,000 of co-pays, and waking up every night terrified the next test would be the one. "I just want to be Eleanor again," she whispered, her eyes wet. "I want to bake, garden, dance with Liam, and stop feeling like my body's a bomb waiting to go off." As a doctor, I've seen this heartbreak too often. The system pushes a fairy tale, more tests, more meds, more life. But after 70, that tale can turn grim. Your body's like a cherished old book, pages worn but rich with stories. You don't rip it apart to check for flaws, you handle it with care, savoring every chapter. Eleanor was losing her story, and I was hell-bent on helping her reclaim it. But what happened next was a shock that shook us both. The plunge, a scan that shattered her peace. Let's take a beat. If you're over 50, you've heard the drum beat. Get your checkups. It's how you stay safe. It's on radio ads, in waiting rooms, from your neighbor who swears by her annual scan. But for folks over 70, that drum beat can lead you off a cliff. Your body's not the same as it was at 40. It's tougher in some ways, tender in others. It doesn't need constant dissecting, it needs respect, balance, and a focus on what keeps you, whether that's baking pies, chasing grandkids, or strumming a guitar. Eleanor's story shows what happens when we buy the hype. 2 months after our first visit, Eleanor called me, her voice a mix of panic and despair. Her longtime doctor, Dr. Larson, had moved away, and her new one, Dr. Novak, pushed a full-body PET CT scan. It's the best way to catch anything early, he said, his tone urgent. Eleanor was skeptical. She was tired of being poked and prodded, but Dr. Novak leaned hard on her fear. You don't want to miss something serious, do you? He asked. She caved, dipping into her savings for the $3,000 scan, money she'd earmarked for Liam's wedding gift. The results hit like a thunderbolt, a suspicious lesion in her pancreas, labeled highly concerning for malignancy. Dr. Novak's face was stone as he delivered the news. We need to biopsy this yesterday. It could be pancreatic cancer. Eleanor's world imploded. She stopped baking, stopped gardening, stopped answering Liam's calls. She'd lie in bed, staring at her rose-patterned curtains, imagining chemo, hospital beds, and missing Liam's wedding. I thought I was done, she told me later, her voice hollow. I thought I'd never see Liam in his tux. But a flicker of doubt saved her. She remembered our talks about questioning tests, about trusting her body. She hadn't had symptoms, no pain, no weight loss, no yellowing skin. Why this panic? Against Dr. Novak's urging, she brought her toad to my office, her eyes begging for clarity. Dr. Thomas, is this worth my life? I dove into the scan, called a radiologist colleague, and hit the journals. Here's the truth, full-body PET CT scans in healthy older adults are a gamble. Up to 70% show incidental findings, spots, nodules, shadows that are often benign but trigger a frenzy. Pancreatic lesions are especially dicey. A biopsy risks bleeding, infection, or pancreatitis, with a 7 to 12% complication rate in folks over 70. And studies show many pancreatic findings in asymptomatic seniors stay harmless for years. I had a gut feeling. Eleanor, let's dig into your old scans, I said. She rummaged through her tote and found a CT report from 9 years ago, tucked in a forgotten folder. There it was, in tiny print, small, stable pancreatic lesion, likely benign. The same lesion, unchanged for nearly a decade, flagged by the PET CT as a crisis. Dr. Novak hadn't checked her history, and the radiologist hadn't compared images. They'd thrown her into a tailspin over a ghost. Eleanor's relief was like a sunrise, but her anger was a storm. Why didn't they look? Why did they make me think I was dying? I shared her fury. This wasn't a mistake, it was a system that prioritizes machines over people, scans over stories. And it was about to get darker. The twist, a brush with disaster. Eleanor's PET CT scare was bad enough, but Dr. Novak wasn't done. Stung by the oversight, he doubled down, pushing an MRI with contrast to monitor the pancreatic lesion. "It's standard," he said, brushing off her hesitation. Eleanor, still reeling, nearly agreed, but she texted me first, "Dr. T, I'm scared. Is this safe?" I was on high alert. Contrast dyes like gadolinium can trash kidneys in older adults, especially after 70, when kidney function often slips without symptoms. Eleanor's last blood test showed her creatinine was creeping up. Nobody had flagged it, but it was a red light. Contrast nephropathy, a form of kidney damage, hits up to 12% of seniors with reduced function, causing swelling, fatigue, or even dialysis. "Eleanor," I said, "your kidneys are like your grandma's china, still gorgeous, but you don't toss them in the dishwasher. Let's test your kidney function before we decide." We ran a blood panel. Her glomerular filtration rate was 48, way too low for contrast without serious risk. I called Dr. Novak and pitched an ultrasound, which uses sound waves, no dye. He snapped, "This is best practice," but Eleanor was done being steamrolled. "No," she told him, her voice steel. "Prove it's worth risking my health." Dr. Novak backed off, and the ultrasound showed no change in the lesion. Bullet dodged. But here's the heart-stopping twist. A week later, Eleanor got a call from her best friend, Maggie, 77, who'd followed Dr. Novak's advice for a contrast MRI. Maggie landed in the ICU with kidney failure, her ankles swollen like balloons, her energy gone. "I thought I was being smart," Maggie sobbed over the phone. "Now I can't even water my daisies." Eleanor's stomach dropped. She'd been seconds from the same fate, and Maggie's pain lit a fire in her soul. She wasn't just saving herself, she was on a mission to save others. Voices from the heart, 4 lives, 4 lessons. Eleanor's story is a lightning bolt, but let me share 4 other patients from my 30 years in medicine. These are real folks, names changed, who got caught in the medical grinder and clawed their way out. Their stories, like Eleanor's, hit at the core of what it means to live fully after 70. Story 1, Tom and the CT catastrophe. Tom, 78, was a retired carpenter from Littleton who loved carving wooden toys for his grandkids. He came to me after a routine CT scan for a sore shoulder, probably arthritis spiraled into hell. The scan, packing radiation equal to 400 chest X-rays, found a tiny lung nodule. A biopsy caused a collapsed lung, landing Tom in the hospital for a month. His workshop went silent, his spirit dimmed. The nodule? Benign, like 60% of such findings in seniors. With me, Tom skipped follow-up scans. He had no cough, no weight loss, no red flags. We focused on his carving strength exercises for his hands, stretches for his shoulder. He's back making toy trains, his grandkids beaming. Tom's lesson: CT scans aren't candy. Ask what they're chasing, if there's a safer way, and if the result changes your life or just your peace. Story 2, Grace and the colonoscopy nightmare. Grace, 80, was a former nurse who loved knitting scarves for her church's winter drive. Her doctor pushed a routine colonoscopy, no symptoms required. The prep fasting and laxatives left her weak, and sedation sparked confusion for a week. Then came abdominal pain, rushing her to the ER with a suspected bowel perforation. She pulled through, but her knitting needles stayed idle for months. Grace and I agreed to skip automatic tests. She had no bleeding, no pain, no family history of colon cancer. We watched for symptoms instead. She's back knitting, her scarves warming Denver's homeless. Grace's lesson: colonoscopies after 70 are for symptoms or high risk. Complications quadruple at 80. Know before you sign up. Story 3: Leroy and the Pill Avalanche. Leroy, 76, was a blues guitarist who played local bars. He showed up with a backpack of 12 pills: blood pressure, cholesterol, glucose, and fixes for their side effects. A slightly high blood sugar kicked it off, leading to metformin, which caused nausea, then an antacid, then a diuretic for swelling. Leroy was dizzy, too weak to strum. We cut his meds to 5, swapping some for diet tweaks and evening walks. Leroy's back rocking Sweet Home Chicago, his fingers flying. His lesson: the prescription cascade is real. Seniors take 60% of drugs, often for nothing. Question every pill, review yearly. Story 4: Helen and the Mammogram Madness. Helen, 77, was a retired librarian who loved reading to kids at the library. Her doctor insisted on annual mammograms, just in case. One flagged a suspicious spot, leading to a biopsy that was negative but left her sore and shaken. The stress kept her from story time for weeks, her joy dimmed. With me, Helen learned the data. After 75, mammograms often overdiagnose without saving lives. She had no symptoms, no family history. We chose clinical exams instead. Helen's back reading Charlotte's Web, her voice enchanting kids. Her lesson: mammograms aren't always your friend after 70. Check the risks, know your body. The core issue: a system that betrays. Eleanor, Tom, Grace, Leroy, Helen, they are not flukes. They are casualties of a system that's lost its way. Medicine sells prevention through endless tests and pills, but after 70, that can do more harm than good. Your body's like a beloved old quilt, cozy and strong, but don't rip the seams to check the stitching. The numbers don't lie. Mammograms, PSA tests, and colonoscopies lose value as risks soar. CT scans stack radiation, contrast dyes hit kidneys in 12% of vulnerable seniors, and full body scans find something in 70% of healthy folks, most of it harmless but heart-wrenching. Why does this happen? Doctors fear lawsuits, patients fear saying no, and the system banks on tests and meds. But as Oprah Winfrey said, the greatest discovery of all time is that a person can change their future by merely changing their attitude. You can change your future by changing how you approach your health, questioning, choosing, and living for what lights you up. Eleanor's redemption: finding her song again. How did Eleanor climb out of the grinder? It started with a simple chat over coffee in my office. "Eleanor," I asked, "what makes you you?" Her face softened, and she spilled stories of her roses, her pies, Liam's wedding. "I want to waltz with my boy," she said, her voice warm. "I want to smell my sunflowers and hear people laugh when they taste my pie." We built her health plan around those dreams, not a test checklist. Here's how we did it, step by step, and how you can too. Step 1. Trust your gut. Eleanor learned to notice lasting changes: sleep, energy, appetite, not every twinge. When she had a week of indigestion, we didn't rush to an endoscopy. We cut greasy foods, added a pillow for sleep, and it faded. Your body's a wise old pal. Listen when it talks, don't grill it. Step 2. Grill every test. Eleanor asked 3 things before any test. Got symptoms? Will this change my plan? Safer option out there? When Dr. Novak suggested another PSA test for her husband's old records, we checked the guidelines. At 75, with no prostate issues, the risk of overdiagnosis was high. She skipped it, focusing on her health. This saved stress and radiation, keeping her strong. Step 3. Slash the meds. Eleanor's 10 pills were a nightmare. Her statin caused cramps, her blood pressure meant dizziness. We reviewed each, asking, does this help you waltz with Liam? We cut 6, tweaked 3, added garden walks. She felt like she'd shed a backpack of bricks. Step 4. Live your fire. We focused on Eleanor's real vitals. Could she garden? Bake? Dance? A physical therapist built her leg strength for waltzing. A nutritionist crafted meals for energy. She joined a seniors dance class, swaying to Moon River with new pals. As Bob Dylan said, a man is a success if he gets up in the morning and gets to bed at night, and in between he does what he loves to do. Eleanor was a success. Step 5. Own your power. Eleanor kept a symptom diary, making her a co-pilot in her care. She drafted an advance directive, locking in her wishes. This gave her peace, knowing she was the boss. The climax, Eleanor's waltz and war cry. 18 months later, Eleanor breezed into my clinic, her tote gone, replaced by a scrapbook. She flipped to a photo from Liam's wedding, Eleanor in her blue dress, waltzing with Liam, her smile brighter than the chandeliers. Dr. Thomas, she said, her voice strong, I didn't just dance, I soared. She'd baked 12 pies for the reception, her roses filled the venue, and she'd laughed until her sides ached. But here's the jaw-dropper. Maggie's ICU nightmare didn't just spark anger, it sparked a revolution. Eleanor launched Seniors Living Smart, a Denver support group teaching folks to question tests, trust their bodies, and chase their joys. With 75 members and counting, she's filming YouTube videos for her own channel, spreading her fire. I want every senior to waltz their waltz, she told me, her eyes blazing. At the wedding, Eleanor met another friend, Clara, 79, who'd had a contrast CT scan and was now on dialysis. Clara's regret watching Eleanor dance while tethered to a machine pushed Eleanor harder. I'm not stopping, she vowed. No one else should lose their song. Her group's now partnering with local clinics to teach doctors, too, proving one woman's courage can rewrite the rules. Your blueprint, rocking life after 70. Here's your playbook to live like Eleanor, backed by my 30 years and the science of thriving. This is for you, living fully after 50 crew, to shine without the medical grind. 1. Find your spark. What's your fire? Baking, grandkids, painting? Pin it down. If you love fishing, build stamina for casting. If you love stories, guard your memory. Your spark steers your health. To choose tests like a pro. Some checkups are gold. Blood pressure and pulse for heart smarts. Vision and hearing to stay in the game. Balance checks to dodge falls. Chronic condition tweaks, light touch. Vaccines, flu, pneumonia, for your area. Skip routine mammograms, PSA tests, or colonoscopies unless symptoms or risks scream for them. Ask. Symptoms? Game changer? Safer route? 3. Kick the pill habit. Seniors gobble 60% of meds, often for nada. Review yearly, asking. Life boost? Lifestyle fix? Side effect worth it? Keep a med list, explore cutting back. 4. Live like you mean it. Health is joy, not scans. Eat colorful, sleep enough, move daily walks, yoga, gardening. Connect, call pals, join clubs, volunteer. These light your soul. 5. Be the captain. You're a story, not a chart. Keep a symptom diary, read consent forms, ask. Can we chill and watch? Easier way. Write for me. If a doctor shrugs you off, find a listener. You can say no, it's your call. 6. Lock in your legacy. Draft an advance directive, share it with family. This keeps your voice loud, always. The final note, your song, your life. Eleanor's story is your rally cry. She didn't need a perfect scan to waltz, she needed guts to say no, wisdom to trust her body, and faith in her right to live big. As Jimi Hendrix said, I'm the one that's got to die when it's time for me to die, so let me live my life the way I want to. Your life is your song, sing it loud. In 30 years, I've learned the best medicine is you, your choices, your dreams, your fire. So, when the next test looms, pause. Ask, will this help me sing, or just drown me out? Trust your gut, chase your joy, and waltz your waltz. For living fully after 50, I want your spark. What's your song? How do you live big without the medical trap? Drop it in the comments, smash that subscribe button, and share Eleanor's story with someone who needs it. Let's keep rocking this life together. See you in the next video. Stay fierce.